Be Frankie.
Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy B-Del. If you're new to this channel, hit the like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. But today I'm going to give an extensive synopsis on the spiritual apparatus of the scientific and metaphysical conceptualization as to why the acceleration of time is sped up. Now, when you understand quantum physics, metaphysics, mind science, technology, it works in tandem with time dilation, right? So I'm going to be breaking down 3 metaphysical reasons why time is starting to speed up, right? So I put together this chart. So this is one of those videos you got to get out your notes because there's a lot of intrinsic information, a lot of intrinsic evidence that I'm basically going to be displaying to everybody. So when you look at the 3 metaphysical reasons why time is starting to speed up, one is consciousness. There's a cosmic event that's basically taking place and it's causing a dematerialization of time, which makes you more metaphysically aware. So time isn't essentially changing. Our consciousness is starting to change. So it's all based on creation, because when you have an evolutionary process by way of breaking away from the 3-dimensional frequency, evolution takes place when time is no longer bounded by the frequency of ether, right? Because the veil is now lifted to where this intrinsic ether is able to manipulate the energy grid system that works in tandem with the technological devices that keeps you trapped in time, right? So the same thing that sparked creation, when you're talking about the ethers, it's actually going to cause a disrupt and cause destruction to time, because the photon hydrogen atom produces electrons. Electrons create elements, and elements create molecules. Molecules create organs, and organs create organ systems. So the same thing takes place when you're talking about the dematerialization of time, when it is collaborating with ether. Third, you have vibration. When vibration of atoms start to vibrate at a higher frequency, it manipulates the 3-dimensional construct by way of time dilation, which causes an interface transition that causes a glitching of the simulation. Now, in order to combat the energy of time starting to speed up, is you got to be present. That is the solution. You got to tap into the frequency of mastery to where you master time, to where you manipulate it by way of chronokinesis, meaning that you're no longer subjugated by time because you control time by way of your neurological faculties, right? So now, when you have the velocity of ether, the velocity of ether has the ability to manipulate the artificial construct of time, because the speeding up in a positive direction of constant rate acceleration and constant positive, which is also equated to evolution. When you have evolution, that causes a reset, because everything that was connected to the 3-dimensional state was based on de-evolution, which was the foundation of degeneracy, right? So as you in a state of evolution by way of accelerated motion and velocity, right? This is where you have the manipulation of time and space, right? Because time is an artificial construct that works in tandem with the grid system. So this goes into the consciousness of the energy grid. The conscious energy grid is how you break free by way of the right knowledge. And that right knowledge is basically the epitome of the time-space dimension construct, right? So this goes into the third and fourth ventricle of the brain, right? Because God is the highest extension of the mind, which uses elements of matter to express itself by a kundalini psychosis, which is a form of transcendence, right? So when you're able to transcend and break free of the mind three-dimensional matrix system, that's when you activate the kundalini awakening, which is based on self-stimulation. That self-stimulation in itself is how you activate the scroll of all, which is the tablets of destiny within you, which I broke down in another video, right? So these are all CIA documents that I'm showing you. These are CIA documents that's telling you that the mind has the ability to manipulate the artificial construct of time, right? So the conscious mind energy grid is how you break free with right knowledge, right? So right knowledge, like I said, is basically the epitome of breaking free from the oscillations of the subjugation of energy that kept you subjugated by time and space, right? That kept you subjugated by time and space. So the conscious matrix is based on evaluation, self-cognition, and it's based on the brain phase. So because it says right here verbatim that the universe is composed of interacting energy fields to where the motion of time and space has one gigantic holographic unbelievable complexity, according to the theories of Carl Prenham, that the neuroscientists at Stanford University, the physicists, it tells you right here, that's not important. So as energy passes through various aspects of the universal hologram, it is perceived to be electrostatic fields, which comprise of the human mind. And that human mind has a that's connected to the human energy field. Because you got to understand that the mind and the heart works in tandem. That is the personification of the laws of Ma'at. You got to be balanced, right? So it says right here verbatim that the heart is more powerful than the brain, because the heart is actually the seat of the soul, and the mind is also the frequency of the soul, because the heart has neurons in it, right? So that's when you got to study neurocardiology, because what you got to understand is that the magnetic field of the heart chakra is 100 times more powerful, or 100,000 more times more powerful than the brain. So this goes into the energy field. It goes into the energy field, which correlates to the layers of the energy body. And the energy body in itself is the 5 overcells body, which is basically the epikinetic body, the eco body, the electromagnetic body, and the gematria body. And the Ethereal state is the Zohar body, right? So when you're looking at on the right side of this chart right here, it says the gematria body. The gematria body is subjugated by time, which keeps you connected to the simulation, because it's all operating on the binary code system, right? Which keeps you trapped into a artificial time analysis mechanism. So when you're trapped on the frequency of time, it subjugates the human energy field, right? To where you can't tap into certain higher states of consciousness, right? So this is basically, it subjugates the electromagnetic auric energy field to where you're no longer to tap into those heightened sensitivity spiritual abilities, right? So the Zohar body is basically the epitome of the etheric self, as you have these ethers coming in, which causes a Christ consciousness. So I'm going to show you this video for a second, because it's actually talking about the formulation of time. And right here, this is a 1964 interview, a man giving time travel by, it says right here, by a galactical visitor. I'm going to play this video.
That's the man. And what form did the formula take? Did he implant it in your mind by telepathy, or did he give you something written in English?
He spoke it to me verbally.
And you remember this?
There's nothing to it to remember.
Will you tell me now? The
Yeah.
formula for a time machine.
F equals 1 over T.
So what you're looking at is basically the formulation for time traveling, right? So you have time equals a period, and those periods are operating on the precessional circle. So the frequency of time, that frequency contains a velocity that manipulates the artificial construct of time, right? Because that frequency is the activation of the God particle within the universe. And you also have a God particle within us to where we're basically able to manipulate the construct of time by way of the heightened consciousness, which causes an interface transition.
F equals 1 over T.
F being frequency and T being time.
And this enables me to go back to the time of Caesar's armies conquering Britain.
Well, it would enable a mathematician to work this out, yes.
And why hasn't this been acclaimed like Einstein's E equals MC squared?
Well, why hasn't the fact that the United States government's been flying anti-gravity ships since 1956 been acclaimed? Or the fact that there's a crater on the moon with a base in it since 1954, we've known this.
Now, you said something about the crater. You said there's a base on the moon that's basically encapsulated inside of a crater. Now, like I said, that's why they call it the Saturn-moon matrix, right? Because it keeps you trapped in time. So they have a supercomputer on the dark side of the moon that controls the frequency of time that's connected to the interstellar energy grid, which is known as the Draconian reptilian net. So that grid system works in tandem by keeping you bounded in time by way of technological radiation. As I said before, it subjugates the human energy field. When you subjugate the human energy field, you can't tap into certain higher states of consciousness by breaking free from the mind-mental matrix.
Holy U.S., why haven't the FBI clapped you incommunicado for breaking secrets that they want to keep secret in the United States?
Well, possibly because they know this information is going to get out eventually anyway, and what I say won't make any difference.
No?
So like I said, this is back in 1964, right? So I'm pretty sure during that time period, he wasn't doing that for publicity. You know, it's one of those things where you have to come to the realization that everything is taking place is a prophetic divination, right? Everything is prophecy. So, like I said, when you are subjugated by time, the artificial construct of time is operating in tandem with the Saturn-moon matrix. What is Saturn? Saturn is a personification of Satan, who is also known as Chronos. Chronos is equated to chronology. Chronology is time. So when you're trapped in time, that basically correlates to the gematria body, right? They kept you bounded to the simulation by way of the binary code system on the dark side of the moon when you're talking about the supercomputer, as he was talking about in the video, right? So when you break free of the patriarchal energy of a patrilineal system that's connected to the energy of the moon, because I told you that the three-dimensional Piscean age of darkness was connected to the energy of the moon. The moon is what keeps you bounded by time by way of your emotions, right? Because the time construct is connected to materialism. So as time is starting to speed up by way of vibration of the atoms and the ethers, right? It basically dematerializes the material world, which also dematerializes time, which is causing a time dilation. So that's when you tap into the Zohar body, right? To where you're no longer subjugated by the frequency of time and materialism, to where everything is basically innately, everything is basically within you. Everything is within you because that is connected to the scroll of all. The scroll of all is the tablets of destiny. When you have the endocrine system in alignment, which activates the 7 energy cortexes, which is your chakra system. So that goes into the whole mythology of the Christ consciousness when you understand the mythology of Brahma, Krishna, and Shiva, because Krishna is the outer manifestation of Shiva, because Shiva is equated to 7, because 7 is equated to God. When you understand the mathematical sequence of the 5% nation, because Krishna is also connected to Christos, which is equated to the Christ consciousness. The Christ consciousness is how you manipulate time. So it's not a coincidence when you're looking at the sigil of Cern, it is basically an emulation of the 666, because 666 is equated to 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, which is the carbon body. So when you have the ether merging in with the carbon body, that's when you get the Christ consciousness. That's where you become a God. That's where you become being able to activate the God particle within you, right? So when you break out of the Kali Yuga cycle, right, the mind mental frequency of the matrix system that was connected to the age of Taurus, the age of Pisces, right, the age of Aries, all that was based on the age of darkness. Now we in the age of the true light, which is the Aquarian age. So when you in the Aquarian age, when you have the influx of ether coming down and merging in with the carbon body, this is where you get your spiritual abilities in, right? This is where you activate the God particle. So with that being said, that means that we are basically walking and talking Cern machines, right? So there's a diametrical difference between, you know, you got the 666 is also equated to the frequency of the beast, but there's also a positive polarity to it because it's also talking about the carbonated man and woman when you have the activation of the neuromelanin, right? When you activate the God particle. Because as I told you before, God is the highest extension of the mind, which uses elements of matter to express itself. So when you're talking about the Cern machine, they're actually talking about us, right? Because when you're tapped into the God particle, you can basically time travel by way of the higher frequency and the higher consciousness of your mind that causes a cosmic convergence under a harmonic convergence of the galvanization of the 144,000, right? So like I said, it's not a coincidence. Now, one thing you got to understand about Cern, in order to tap into that technology, Cern has quarks. Now, a quark is basically comprised of protons and neutrons activates neutrinos, and neutrinos activates Holy Ghost particles, which are nitroids, right? And those nitroids are basically personification of ether, right? So now we're going to go to this publication right here. Now, when you understand the first law of thermodynamics, it is based on the conservation of energy. The conservation of energy to where you transmute heat into ether, and the ethers by way of electromagnetic radiation causes a electrical static and an electrical octave vibration inside of the atmosphere, right? Because neutrinos have the ability to travel faster than the speed of light because light travels at 186,000 miles per second, which causes a activation to the particles of dark matter under a tachyon energy to where you're able to time travel, right? So this is also connected to the quarks. As I was telling you, the quarks contain a certain visible light spectrum and it causes a certain vibration, and it has a vibration of light that basically connects a dualistic vibration of nature through waves and particles and atoms and things of that nature. Because as I told you before, the epitome of non-ether is antimatter, right? So you got electricity, thermodynamics, hydrodynamics, electromagnetic radiation, and resonant energy. That is non-ether. And that non-ether is activated by way of quarks, right? As I told you, it is comprised of protons and neutrons that creates neutrinos, right? So those neutrinos in itself causes a quark energy, right? And that quark in itself activates the Higgs boson particle, which is also known as the God particle, right? The God particle, when you study particle physiology, the God particle is basically comprised of quarks, leptons, bosons, and the Higgs boson, which is the God particle. So quarks, which is comprised of protons and neutrons, it creates leptons, which is electrons, which also creates bosons. And the boson is the Higgs boson particle, which is the God particle. The God particle is activated by way of gamma radiation. Gamma radiation is activated by way of the velocity of ether. And that ether in itself is causing a time dilation, right? So when you have a time dilation, that's when you're able to tap into the quark star elementary particle, because it tells you about when you go to their website, they tell you about quarks, right? So the same thing that basically manipulates the space-time continuum, the Cern machine, is actually inside of us, right? So it tells you right here verbatim, quark is a elementary particle, And they use that to basically manipulate the space-time continuum. Now, when you go to this right here, are quarks and humans deep within the atoms that make up our bodies, and even within the protons and neutrons that make up the atomic nuclei, are tiny particles called quarks, right? Now, you got to understand something. That same quark energy is also connected to the blue sun, right? So when you're talking about the Hopi prophecy of the blue sun called Upsu, right? Or Apsu or Shamish, is one of the three suns that comes from a trinary star system when you're talking about the 19th galaxy, which is basically the fifth dimension. So that's outside of the magnetosphere. So everything as far as like a quark star energy is all based on magnetism. So the Hopi mythology of the blue star Kachina that contains a quark star energy, it could be one of those things. It can basically be allegorical, and it can basically be talking about the carbon body being the personification of the blue star Kachina, right? Because when you're thinking at a high vibrational frequency, that's when you tap into the energy of the crown chakra, right? Which some people say is ultraviolet light, some people say that it's blue. So that's when you activate, you transmute from the energy of green to blue or to ultraviolet light. That is the transmutation process when you understand particle physics and when you understand the color spectrum of the chakra system. So like I said, quarks are basically inhuman. So the same things that's inside of the Cern machine is actually inside the carbonated man and woman when it's activated by way of neuromelanin, which causes a transmutation process to create dark matter. Dark matter is a invisible dark matter which makes up most of the universe, right? So it causes a gravitational effect on the planet. So when you have that gravitational effect on the planet due to the acceleration and the expansion of dark matter energy, it causes a quantum fluctuations. And those quantum fluctuations causes a quantum entanglement, right? By way of the ether that's coming in from the magnetosphere that's activating the magnetic field of the planet. So the ether is not only activating the planet, it's activating those who are connected to the planet, because that's when you get into the etheric cord by birthright, right? Because nationality comes from the word nativity. Nativity comes from the word birthright. Your birthright is your etheric cord to the planet. So the same thing, and when you're talking about the inception of creation, when you're talking about ether, right? When you're talking about the 9 noble gases, which is carbon, lithium, sulfur, helium, hydrogen, exon, radon, argon, and krypton. So when you have those 9 noble gases connecting to the frequency of ether, it can cause chaos or it can cause order. It's one of those things. So that's why within the Freemasonic lodges, they have the white and black checkerboard floors, right? Because the white is personification of order, and the dark matter energy that causes a quantum entanglement is the chaos, right? Which causes a reset, which is why we're going through a great reset, right? So I'm going to show you this video of this ether, this intrinsic ether that's causing a chaotic shift on the planet. Now, now, as you can see, that was intrinsic, the velocity of ether, because I told you the velocity of ether travels at 186,000 miles per second, right? That is faster than the speed of light, or fast as the speed of light. So some people would say, oh, that's an direct energy weapon, being facilitated by the government. That's all BS. That's all bullshit. And I'm going to tell you why. Because, for one, particle energy weapons are not green, right? So when you're talking about laser beam weaponry, right? Most of them work on the color spectrum of a white light, or they work on the color spectrum of red, because red is also the personification of destruction. So this is also connected to a low energy weapons, low energy lasers, high energy laser weaponry. They only use red lasers when you're talking about direct energy weapons, or they use white lighting. Now, by way of the quantum entanglement, which is also causing a time dilation, right? Because as I told you before, the same capabilities that a CERN machine has, we have that same capability. So as I told you before in the beginning of the video, right? When I broke down the 3 metaphysical reasons why time is starting to speed up, right? 3 metaphysical reasons why time is speeding up, right? Consciousness, because like I said, there's a cosmic event, and that cosmic event is the cosmic convergence by way of cosmic radiation. That cosmic radiation is the ether. So as everything starts to speed up in vibration, it basically collapses time to where you're able to control time by way of chronokinesis, right? So the same capabilities that a CERN machine has, we also can manipulate the artificial construct of time. We have those same capabilities. Now I'm going to show you a video. This guy he used to work for CERN, actually, right? He used to work for CERN, and he's going to be breaking down of what takes place at CERN, right? He's going to be breaking down of what takes place at CERN. So this, like I said, this guy's a whistleblower, and he used to work at CERN. So I'm going to play this video for a second.
On the 10th of September, 2008, the largest, most complex, and most expensive machine ever devised by man was turned on. The Large Hadron Collider, or LHC, is a 17-mile-long ring of superconducting electromagnets buried approximately 300 feet beneath the ground near the city of Geneva on the Franco-Swiss border. Chilled to temperatures colder than the void of outer space, and generating a magnetic field more than 100,000 times that of the Earth's, this machine accelerates proton particle beams to a velocity just under the speed of light, and then smashes them together in particle detector chambers in order to break apart the nuclei and unloose the subatomic secrets of matter. At full power, the LHC produces...
Now, one thing you got to understand is that he's basically breaking down the neurological faculties and the neurosynaptic mods that's connected to the neuromelanin, right? Which is also connected to the 3rd and 4th ventricle of the brain. When you're talking about different states of consciousness, when you're talking about the master gland, which is the hypothalamus gland, that's connected to the endocrine system, where you activate a form of a kundalini psychosis, which is a form of transcendence. He's basically breaking down everything that's within the genetical structure of the carbonated man and the carbonated woman, right? He is breaking down the neurological faculties of the CERN of our bodies. That's also an emulation of the CERN machine, because one thing you got to understand about westernized technology, it is basically a direct emulation of who we are genetically, right? So as I told you before, 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 666 is talking about the carbonated man and the woman, right? So just like a CERN machine is able to manipulate time, we're able to manipulate time because our etheric cord is connected to the planet. And so when you have this ether coming in, it causes a cosmic convergence, a cosmic convergence by the galvanization of the 144,000. 1 + 4 + 4 = 9, right? The non-ether that's coming in when you're talking about the speeding up of consciousness. So like I said, time is not speeding up. Our consciousness is through the law of vibration.
Roughly 600 million collisions per second, creating fleeting, minuscule atomic explosions up to 1 million times hotter than the interior of the sun. The data collected from these collisions is processed by the worldwide LHC computing grid, one of the most extensive and powerful computing grids on the planet. The grid, as it is known, builds on the technology of the World Wide Web, which was invented at Cern in 1989. The Large Hadron Collider.
So as he was talking about the grid system in itself, he's talking about the draconian reptilian net. Because as I told you before, the black nobility, you know, the CERN machine is in Switzerland. Switzerland is the only country that never had a war, right? Because that is the home of the black nobility, who manipulates the artificial construct of time, who manipulates the space-time continuum, right? So with that being said, that essentially means that this system is being facilitated by black nobility, draconian archons. These archons are the ones who created the grid system, as I broke down in one of my videos, talking about the archons in the firmament, right?
Is the primary research instrument of the European Organization for Nuclear Research, otherwise known as Cern. After the devastating detonations of Fat Man and Little Boy over Nagasaki and Hiroshima at the end of World War II, mankind was irrevocably thrust into the atomic age. In accordance with the inevitability thesis, which posits that once a technology is introduced into society, what follows is the inevitable development of that technology. The scientific community, impelled by military interests around the globe, became obsessed with the idea of harnessing the power of the mighty atom and unraveling the very fabric of physical reality at the subatomic level. Cern is the largest scientific consortium in the world, involving thousands of top physicists from 21 member states, all working in tandem to discover the fundamental elements that hold the universe together. While this admitted objective of Cern,
that lets me know one thing right now. Like, if you, hypothetically speaking, through eugenics, if they was to get rid of every so-called black person on the planet, that would literally make the moon fall, right? Because our energy is what keeps this simulation going. Our energy is what keeps this artificial construct going, the artificial construct of time, right? So that's why they got to do everything in increments. You can't just get rid of a whole demographic of people, right? So as he was saying, you know, that is basically, you know, the foundation of the system. That is the foundation of the universe. We are the God particle, right? We are the Cern machine. We are the Hadron Collider, right? You know what I'm saying? Because the same things, as far as like westernized technology, as I was saying before, those same capabilities, those same attributes is also connected to who we are neurologically and biologically.
seems innocent enough and even laudable in a sense. There are deep concerns about potential unintended consequences and probable occult intentions. When analyzing a scientific endeavor as costly and ambitious as Cern, it is essential that we have a realistic understanding of the mechanisms and machinations that have been propelling technological advance.
So that's, you know what I'm saying? He used to work at Cern. That was a whistleblower, right? So now we're going to get into So like I said, that's when you're able to manipulate time through the theory of relativity. So one thing you also got to understand is that, you know, your neurological faculties, when you're talking about the theological context of the Tower of Babel, it is actually talking about the neural network of your neural synapses and the neurotransmitters, right? Because, you know, the brain structure is also connected to the temporal spinal cortex and the glands that looks like a direct emulation of the Tower of Babel, right? So when the Tower of Babel fell neurologically, that's when you lost right knowledge, right? That's when you wasn't able to tap into your true spiritual abilities. That's when you wasn't able to tap into your intuition, your discernment, to where you see things with a supreme spiritual eye, right? To where you have a wisdom of a serpent. You lost that connection neurologically. That's when you had the dematerialization of the Tower of Babel, which is also direct emulation of the motor cortex gland that is inside the 34th ventricle of the brain. So it's not a coincidence that the Tower of Babel, right, what you're looking at is a template in the geographical area of Switzerland, right? So it tells you right here that the Tower of Babel was also an emulation or a correlation to the Cern machine, because it's all connected. So one thing about people, you know, when they read the Bible, they read it like it's a children's book because they don't understand genetics, they don't understand science, they don't understand astronomy, they don't understand mind science technology, they don't understand none of this stuff. So they read it and they take it verbatim. When you're talking about the Tower of Babel, they are talking about the neural network of the master gland, which is the hypothalamus gland. This is all talking about your neural network. This is all talking about the neural synapses and how you activate the neural synapses by way of the ether coming in. So that's when you start to collapse time, when you break free from the mind simulated matrix. So the Large Hadron Collider is actually talking about the Tower of Babel, because when the Tower of Babel, when you understand the mythology of it, it was talking about how the Babylonians, they built the Tower of Babel so they can get into the heavens, right? Because as I told you before, God is the highest extension of the mind, which uses the elements of matter to express itself. Because when you raise up your mental consciousness, that's where you reach the higher states of God mentally. Because like I said, God is the mind. So when you had the breaking down of the Tower of Babel by way of the jealous God of the Bible, right? That was basically the personification of the spiritual cutoff, right? To where you lost your abilities, right? So now those spiritual abilities is also connected to the man not called Simeon Toko, right? Now we still have people on the planet who have certain abilities, but like I said, everything is now in a incremental process. It's not an influx of people on this planet right now that has, these heightened spiritual abilities. When you're talking about clairvoyance, psychometry, telekinesis, all this stuff, right? So Simeon Toko, you know what I'm saying? This is also documented in the CIA. Like I said, everybody knows about this story. Not a lot of people, but he basically had the same capabilities and the same abilities that was basically complementary to Jesus, right? He was a healer. And they also try to kill him, but he was able to regenerate himself, because one thing you got to understand about carbonated genetics, carbonated genetics is based on the human energy field, to where energy expands and returns to itself through a form of regeneration. So when they try to kill him, he was able to regenerate himself, right? He was able to put his biological structure right back together, because he has immortalized cell lines, meaning that the cells are able to replicate themselves on an infinite level, right? That is what you have the foundation of ether, because the carbon body in itself is the highest form of technology on this planet, right? So now we're going to get into some videos, because like I said, as time is starting to speed up, so is your abilities, right? So is your abilities. Your abilities is connected to the frequency of time, because time is what subjugated your spiritual abilities. Now we broke out of the Kali Yuga cycle. As we transition into the golden age, now we in the age of Aquarius, because now the age of Aquarius is being facilitated by the star Polaris. It's under new management now, right? The precessional circle of the equinox is under new management. So where you have these intrinsic forms of ether coming in, right, which is causing a cosmic radiation. That cosmic radiation is how you're able to make things move with your mind, levitation, right? I'm gonna play this video. So like I said, your spiritual abilities come online due to the activation of the ether that's coming in. There's no string attached, nothing. That's all ability. Those are all metaphysical abilities. There's another video of this guy. Because like I said, when you start to speed up in consciousness, that basically collapses time, because time is what subjugates your abilities. Go to Genesis chapter 3 when you're talking about the firmament, right? That is when the jealous God of the Bible, Yahweh, Enlil, Moloch, whatever you want to call him, that is when he separated the intergalactic waters from the third dimension and created a firmament. The firmament works in tandem with the electrical grid system. The electrical grid system is a form of technology that subjugates your spiritual nature to where you're bounded by time under your gematria body. Your gematria body is connected to the simulation. The simulation is causing an interface transition by way of the ether that's coming in, to where we activate those spiritual abilities that collapses time through a cosmic convergence. That cosmic convergence in itself is a shifting process. You're shifting from the Alpha Draconis star system to the star Polaris, right? I'm gonna play this video. Now, this video is showing you a guy that's basically airbending. Some people try to say it was a card, but one thing you got to understand, I mean, some people said that he had a string attached to the card. One thing you got to be, very meticulous. You got to be very logical and rational about certain things. If people that was there watching this man making this card levitate and all these things of that nature, if they was there and they didn't see a string, what makes you think that your ass is going to see a string through the video, right? So it's one of those things where people are so subjugated by the construct of westernized education system and the construct of westernized curriculum, so much to the point where they don't have the ability to fathom the unknown, right? Because they have an emotional connection to this world, so they're not going to understand many different things that's connected to the metaphysical aspect of certain abilities, right? Because for those who are stuck in religion and monotheism and stuff like that, they believe that Jesus walked on water, he healed all these people, but they would negate something like this. They would say, they would castigate, oh, this is fake, right? So that's why I tell people all the time that double-minded people are confused people, right? They believe one thing and not the other, right? So they're basically neurologically unbalanced. I'm gonna play this video.
Where's string at? Where motherfucking string at?
So one thing, like I said, one thing you gotta understand, a string is not gonna make a car flutter in thin air like that. For one, he did a spin around, so the string would have got tangled up somewhere while he was doing that. There is no string attached. What makes you think these people in the background, right? They didn't see a damn string, so what makes your ass think you seen a string? You know what I'm saying? Cut the BS. Just like the guy that was sitting at the cafe, he didn't have no damn string. Because you can't negate the fact that, as I was telling you about Simeon Toko, he said there's going to be more people like me in the future, right? So this is a real story. Simeon Toko, the deep state, they tried to kill him and he was able to regenerate himself. So like I said, these abilities is coming online because you're no longer subjugated by time, because consciousness collapses time to where you master time by chronokinesis, right? So with that being said, I'm gonna show you another video. There's another video of this guy, of another guy. I mean, the same guy I showed you in the beginning. He was doing air bending with this paper at a cafe. A string, huh? Yeah, certain people have abilities. He's at a cafe that's not AI technology. You can tell by, people in the background, paying attention to what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where you have to get out of the state of ignorance, because one thing you got to understand about the Piscean Age of Darkness. Piscean Age of Darkness was basically connected to ideology that's connected to the demiurge, because the demiurge is comprised of the fourth dimension that's merged in, the lower fourth dimension merged in with the third dimension, right? So that's when you that is based on ego. The whole concept of the demiurge that was connected to the Piscean Age, that was being managed by the Alpha Draconis star system, all that stuff was being facilitated by ego, right? So now you're having the dematerialization of ego to the point where you start to see certain things for what it is. That is basically the eradication of the selfish gene, right? Because the demiurge is your ego. You got to get at that ego in order to tap into the heart chakra, because your heart chakra is connected to your abilities. So that's why it tells you in Matthew 22:14, many are called, only few are chosen, right? So with that being said, these abilities are starting to come online, right? These abilities are starting to come online because, like I said, it's all based on the radiation frequency. It's all based on the radiation frequency of ether that collapses time, right? Because it tells you right here, when you understand the law of thermodynamics, which is the conservation of energy, that white light is also the embodiment of the spiritual sun that's outside of the dome, right? Which is the star Polaris, which is causing a thermal radiation, which is basically the movement of subatomic particles in every object in nature, indicates that is indeed emitting a electromagnetic radiation due to thermal radiation, right? So this is causing the black body radiation. That black body radiation is a luminescence that basically is comprised of coronal mass ejections, and it's comprised of plasma energy, right? So this is how you know what I'm saying? This is all connected to genetics. It's all connected to cosmic radiation and things of that nature. So with that being said, right? Where's it at? Now, one thing you got to understand, when you activate, you know, your carbon body by way of the conservation of energy, which is the first law of thermodynamics, you have the electromagnetic spectrum, which is connected to the human eye. This is where you have wavelengths of visible light, all electromagnetic radiation light, but we can see a small portion of this radiation. The portion we call visible light, cone-shaped cells in your eyes act as receivers tuned to the wavelengths in the narrow band of the spectrum, right? So like I said, when you activate the God mind, you activate the spiritual eye. The spiritual eye is connected to the star Polaris, right? So this is not a coincidence that, you know, there's a video going around and there's this lady and she's seen a city in the sky, right? Because like I said, when you collapse time, that is when you have the colliding of the three-dimensional state merging in with the spiritual world, right? The fifth dimension merging in with the third dimension. So you're going to have those who are going to be left behind, because you're going to have the people who are in a state of conformity, going to go to like, oh, that's fake, or that's a conspiracy. Oh, he didn't make a car, you know, levitate. That's all tricks. They doing that. That's all technology. That's CGI. That's AI technology. He got a string on his finger. Those are the people who's going to be left behind, because they're not going to be able to fathom many different anomalies that's going to be taking place on the planet. So they're not going to believe, God dang it, they're not going to believe that there's going to be cities in the sky. You know what I'm saying? This woman's taking a picture. There's a city in the sky, right? Because like I said, as you have the vibration of atoms in the third dimension, it dematerializes everything in the material plane, right? So this basically coincides with this video right here. There's a guy, he's seen land in the sky, right? So this guy's, he's on a parachute. He sees like geographical land masses and mountains as he's in the sky, right? Could that be also the personification of the crystal city that's connected to all the mythology? When you're talking about, you know, whether you read in the Holy Quran, the Bible, whether you reading any type of publication that talks about the crystal city, right? Because what makes you conscious is where you're able to see certain things, right? Where you're able to see certain things, because like I said, time is what subjugated the spiritual eye. So you're going to start to see a lot more things that's connected to the quantum world. right? You're going to start to see a lot more things. Now, there's going to be another video I'm going to show you. Because as I told you before, the heart chakra in the brain works in tandem. Because the heart is the seat of the soul, but the heart also has neurons in it. And the heart has neurons in it because it's basically personification of balance. So as I was telling you before, when you have intrinsic ether, the velocity of ether, activating the magnetic field of the planet, it activates everything that's connected to the planet. Because when you understand the physiology of birds, they have an internal clock that's connected to the Fibonacci sequence of time that's connected to nature. So it's all based on communication and migration, right? So when you're looking at these birds right here, they have their wings up, right? I'm gonna get my statue real quick. This is all the epitome of balance, right? The heart and the mind working in synergy to where it causes a form of consciousness, the activation of consciousness on the planet. The heart chakra and the crown chakra working in tandem. That is the embodiment of balance. Balance is when you go into 0 point energy, a reset. And that reset in itself is basically connected to a form of judgment, right? Because that's what the scales of Mayat, the laws of Mayat, is based on judgment. So there's not a coincidence that on October 14th, that solar eclipse was basically the judgment of the red dragon as we segue into 2024, which is the year of the dragon. So when you're looking at these birds, their wings are up. That is a personification of balance, 0 point energy, reset, right? Because everything in nature is connected to the ethers.
Right. This is literally a sign. This is an omen. What are they telling us?
Right? Birds, you know what I'm saying? They got their wings up. This is not artificial intelligence. I'm going to play it again. It's not artificial intelligence. They got their wings up, right? Because you also can't negate the fact that the geographical landmass of America is actually the land of Tahuti, right? The land of the feathers, the land, you know, where you call them Quetzalcoatl, Inky, whatever. Depends on what mythology that you follow. So like I said, you got to understand that the birds' physiology, they have an internal clock that's connected to the Fibonacci sequence of time that's connected to nature. So it's based on communication. That's why I say it's imperative that you pay attention to nature, because nature is going to tell you what the fuck time it is on the planet, right? So now, when you get into, for those who are stuck in religion, because like I said, I want to hit every pillar of knowledge in order to get people to see what I see. So this is why sometimes, you know, I'm going to tap into religion, because I know that a lot of people are stuck in religion, right? So when you go to Amos chapter 9, 13 to 15, goes into the message. Yes, indeed, it won't be long now. God's decree. Things are going to happen so fast, your head will swim. One thing fast on the heels of the other. You won't be able to keep up. Everything will be happening at once. And everywhere you look, blessings. Right? Speeding up of time. Like I said, judgment. The day of judgment will not come until time comes closer. Time is speeding, and the year becomes like a month, and the month like a Friday. Example, 1 week. And a Friday like a day, and a day like an hour, and the hour like a flash of fire. And that fire is a tetrahedron that has a tachyon energy. Tetra is a personification of light, right? Ether. Because as I told you before, light travels at 186,000 miles per second. So when you have that velocity of ether coming in, it sparks consciousness. That consciousness is not, that consciousness basically speeds up time, right? Because you're vibrating at a higher frequency mentally, right? So that all works in tandem. So for those coming in, you know, I'm going to break everything down. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to just give a real quick, brief synopsis of everything that's basically correlated with the video. So when you break down the three metaphysical reasons why time is speeding up, for one, it's consciousness, it's creation, and it's vibration, right? So the consciousness aspect, as I was telling you, there's a cosmic event that's taking place that basically dematerializes time, which makes you more metaphysically aware. So time isn't changing, our consciousness is, right? Through the law of vibration. So that also coincides with creation. The evolution takes place when time is no longer bounded by the frequency of ether, because the veil is now lifted. The veil is lifted because, like I said, the veil was the firmament. The veil was the energy grid, which is why you have a lot of technological malfunctions, right? You know what I'm saying? You got these apps on our phone, you know what I'm saying? They're starting to, be manipulated. The phones are starting to be manipulated because the firmament in the grid system that basically created time that keeps you encapsulated in time, the firmament, right? That is being controlled by Saturn and the moon. That is what, stagnated the evolution. Now the veil is lifted. So now you're having a new form of creation, right? So that new form of creation is basically activated by ether, because the inception of time, that is what created everything, was the ether, right? And it's also going to cause the destruction of the dematerialization of time. So you also have the law of vibration. When you have atoms vibrate at a high frequency, it manipulates the third dimensional construct by way of time dilation, which creates an interface transition, which is the glitching of the simulation, the glitching of the energy extraction matrix. So as everything around you was starting to speed up in vibration, in order to master yourself, you have to master time by collapsing time through a form of mind manipulation, which is chronokinesis, right? To where you're able to stay present while things are starting to speed up, right? So it goes in, it's talking about, they talking about all this stuff in the CIA documents, how you're able to manipulate timelines with the consciousness aspect of your mind when you activate the God particle. Because the God particle is connected to the human energy field, which is also connected to the 5 overcells, which is the epikinetic body, eco body, electromagnetic body, the gematria body, which is connected to the 3rd dimension, and the Zohar body, which is basically the 5th dimensional body, which is your etheric state, right? You tap into that energy, right? Because it's connected to the God particle, which is also an emulation of the Higgs boson particle, is what they use at the Cern organization. Because one thing you got to understand about the Higgs boson particle is basically connected to westernized technology, westernized civilization. When you're talking about, how to create this whole infrastructure of their form of particle physiology and things of that nature. So like I said, the Cern machine is actually the embodiment of who we are, right? Because as you look at the sigil of 666 on the Cern machine, it's talking about 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons, right? So that is basically talking about the carbon body due to the activation of the neuromelanin. When you have the activation of the neuromelanin, that's connected to the hypothalamus gland, the master gland, that's connected to the 7 energy cortexes, which is your chakra system. So it's not a coincidence that you see Shiva right here, because when you understand the mythology of Brahma, Krishna, and Shiva, Shiva is the outer manifestation. Krishna is the outer manifestation of Shiva, because Krishna is equated to Christos. Christos is the Christ consciousness. So Shiva is also equated to the number 7. 7 is equated to God when you understand the mathematical sequence of the 5% nation. 7 is equated to God, and it's also equated to completion, the completion of a system, as you have a time dilation that basically collapses time. So now, like I said, this is all connected. The Cern machine, the carbonated man and woman, is a walking, talking Cern machine. So the Cern machine has quarks in it, right? The quarks is activated by the God particle. The God particle is comprised of quarks, leptons, bosons, and the Higgs boson, which is the God particle. The quarks is basically comprised of protons and neutrons that produces neutrinos, and those neutrinos activates leptons, which are basically another name for electrons. And those electrons collaborated with the quarks creates the God particle, right? So when you have the activation of the God particle, that quark is a elementary particle that can manipulate the artificial construct of time. So the same thing that's inside the Cern machine is also inside of us, right? Because you have quarks. You have quarks are in humans, deep within the atoms that make up our bodies, and even within the protons and neutrons that make up the atomic nuclei are tiny particles called quarks. Because the quarks can manipulate the artificial construct of time that's connected to dark matter. And that dark matter has an acceleration expansion that causes a quantum fluctuation through a quantum entanglement, right? So this is where you manipulate time through time dilation, through the theory of relativity, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this video needed to come out because a lot of people, you know, they don't understand why time is speeding up. It's not a coincidence that you see the sun and the moon out at the same time, because the moon is the personification of a patrilineal system that subjugates you by way of time that's connected to the religion. Because I told you, it's all connected to the firmament. The firmament, when you're talking about the book of Genesis, the firmament is connected to the energy grid. The energy grid is what keeps you bounded in time, right? So a lot of people don't understand that when you have the dematerialization of time, that is the dematerialization of the material world. The material world is connected to the moon. So that's why I said that everything that's connected to the three-dimensional state is an illusion. Time is an illusion because the moon is basically an illusion, right? So a lot of people all around us, from children, you know, everybody's starting to notice that time is starting to speed up. It's not one of those things where, oh, we getting older and, you know, it has nothing to do with that. You know what I'm saying? What you see and taking place right now is something metaphysical. It's something that's based on prophetic divination, right? This is basically a part of the timeline of eschatology. This is the science of the end times as I'm breaking down, right? That's what I'm breaking down. This is why time is speeding up. Time is speeding up because our vibration is starting to speed up. The mental faculties of who we are, genetically and neurologically, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it's imperative that you get this video out, because this video is for those who don't understand what's taking place. They don't understand the dichotomy between why time is speeding up and why our consciousness is starting to speed up, right? So this video breaks everything down theologically, metaphysically, you know, through quantum physics. You know what I'm saying? It breaks down everything genetically, neurologically. I touched every topic on why, you know, certain things are starting to speed up. You know what I'm saying? Why time is speeding up. It's because our consciousness is starting to speed up through the law of vibration. So ladies and gentlemen, get this video out there. And also check out that audio book that I put out. I put it out for free, and I put it out a few months ago, and you know, and I put it out, you know, for $20 or whatever. But you know, like I said, what I don't do nothing for money or whatever. So it's one of those things where I can just put out something. I put it out for free. I don't care. I just want the information to get out there, because, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, you got to create, you know, audio comic books and things of that nature in order for the children to understand what's taking place intuitively. Because it's not only just about for those who understand and comprehend the information on an adult level, you know what I'm saying? Because the kids are the future, you know what I'm saying? The teenagers are the future. So it's imperative, if you have children or you have a niece or a nephew and they into, you know, astronomy and extraterrestrials and they want to know about what's going on, show them that audio book, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching this video. Get this video out there. End of transmission.
10:14. We will put an end to this madness.
It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. Karma's gonna get to you, and then you'll have a chariot with only one less friend. Now I had distant folks that are looking to my eyes to understand the wisdom he's given and his wealth from the skies. So thanks for this meal that I'm about to receive, and thank you for my health and all the good memories. Thanks for the courage taking on another day. When I used to not believe, but now I know about grace. Stay away from the fire, cause the flames does burn. Go with your gut feeling. When it's wrong, you learn. For every one step I take, the Lord takes two. And do unto others if you want it done unto you. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. This a completion, the selfish Proto-Grecian, Amerindian, Phoenician. I'm the last of the Mohicans, the bastard of the land, the pen, melanin, accretion. And we just trying to get back to the fact that we was kings and queens of a land before the avalanche seized it. I live on Turtle Island with the rest of the diseased. Better than the medicine for 7 different treatments. Niggas try to ride away but end up getting seasick. The sleep can feel my words like Braille and they're awakened with the penmanship of Hindu script written in them vacant monastery honor. Honorary payments to the prototype. Tomorrow's only a day away, but nothing happens overnight. The fuck's wrong with going left when you know it's right? Biting off more than I can chew, that's an overbite. Black on black crime is like watching 2 soldiers fight when all along they was on the same page. History. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land.